Hey, everybody, welcome. This is the global community for adult survivors of complex trauma. If you're an adult and you're living with symptoms of CPTSD, then this is a weekly place for you to come and spend time with a community filled with people just like you who show up and just want to either receive compassionate support, hang out with one another, give support. We have moderators here. This is not crisis support whatsoever, um, but this is a place where we all like to hang out every week and spend time with one another. We've been doing this for about 5 years now, and um, I'm really grateful that you've chosen to be here. I don't believe you're here on accident. And tonight is really special because we're having a community discussion about emotional flashbacks. And whenever we get on the topic of emotional flashbacks, we usually end up talking about, of course, the one and only Pete Walker, who has written numerous books. He has um, he's published a lot of different articles on the topic of emotional flashbacks for psychotherapy.net. There are about 10 years ago, he published the article that we're going to be reading today. And I'm going to read it out loud while you all are hanging out there in the chat box. And then I will be able to come over and hang out in the chat box with you. I'll come over and say hello in just a moment, but I just wanted you to know not only is today special because, of course, we're going to be talking about Pete Walker, and he's one of our favorites, and we love him. And he's dedicated 30 years of his life working with other people, helping other people who are struggling, and his understanding of complex trauma is unsurpassed, in my opinion. He's right up there with Bessel van der Kolk, Peter Levine, Dan Siegel. It's remarkable how well he's able to disseminate information and break it down into bite-sized pieces for us. Those of us who are struggling with CPTSD symptoms, we can often struggle to be able to focus on certain bits of information for long periods of time. So it's wonderful when we actually find someone that we can read their work and it's easily digestible. And not only that, but it gives us light bulb moments, and then we're able to apply what it is that we've learned to our own lives and then to the lives of others whom we may meet on this journey. So let me come over and say hello to you on the chat box. Not only, of course, are we talking about emotional flashbacks tonight, but if you look at the screen share, you'll see that I am finally, after 5 years of wishing I could do something fancy like this, I'm launching a free texting program through cptsdfoundation.org. And as many of you know, CPTSD Foundation is the organization that I founded just from lived experience and reaching out and connecting with, many of you, hundreds, even thousands of you, who have just expressed a need in complex trauma resources. Comprehensive resources, not only for survivors, but for practitioners, which are trauma-informed, talking about adverse childhood experiences, the devastating after effects of adverse childhood experiences, and unlocking sort of those truths that we get stuck on of like, why is it that these things happened to me 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago and they're still affecting me? I don't understand. Like, I've been to therapy. What's the deal? And so what we do is, I host daily calls. I co-host through the foundation, daily calls where we have discussions about healing from complex trauma, all different aspects of that. You can find information about that at cptsdfoundation.org. The daily calls are not free, but the daily texting, where you would receive one text message per day, every day, as long as you're in the United States or you have a United States telephone number. US numbers only right now. We haven't been able to branch out into the greater world yet. That's the goal. I can only afford to. Right now, I'm I'm funded by people, wonderful people like you, provide funding for the things that I offer. Um, these daily calls, the printable resources, the way that we can show up and provide, responses to people's emails. We can vet people for safe groups, virtual support groups, offer free texting programs, and all that is funded by viewers and listeners and survivors and practitioners and treatment centers and people who have a heart for trauma survivors. So I can't do free texting for everyone in the whole wide world yet, but just in the United States right now. But it is exciting because today we're sort of in a beta. We're beta testing it right now. So bear with us over the next week or so. You'll receive one text per day from us, and that's one text once a day for the next week. We're testing it. And then we're going to, after that 1 week, we will send you a link to give us your feedback, give us your thoughts. Let us know how you liked that. Did you like the timing of it? Did you like the length? Did you enjoy the format? What would you change about it? And of course, your feedback is all anonymous. And then we can implement the changes that you suggest. And then when we launch it to the public, of course, you're still going to be on the list of people who, are receiving the one text per day, once a day. And again, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just like these YouTube videos. It's free to show up on YouTube and hang out with all of us for a week. So that's what's special about today, Monday, May 13th, 2019. I'm going to try to see if I can have access to the chat box real quick. Let's see if I can access the chat box so I can see you all and say hello to you before I jump into today's article that I'm going to read you. Here goes nothing. Let's see if I can have access to that. It says here that there are 31 of you here right now. So we're a little light on attendance, but I did start a little bit early today. So thanks in advance for any thumbs up you choose to give this video. But yeah, all you have to do is go on your phone and click compose text message. And up where the telephone number would normally go, you're going to put our short code. You're going to type in 555-888. And then down where you would normally send a text message like, hey, what are you doing? Want to meet up for coffee or whatever? What you'll do is you'll type in the letters CPTSD. And then you'll click send. And then you would receive a text message back from us confirming. And you can cancel at any time. Now, standard text messaging rates do apply. It's important to know that. Like whatever you get charged for text messages normally, we don't charge you anything. It's a free service that we offer. But you most definitely it'll ding you for a text message, however many texts you have on your plan, So let me see if I can go and I can access the chat box now. See how you all are doing. On your oops, that was me talking. I can't stand listening to my own voice. Ooh, yay, I already have one of the thumbs downers are back. They're like, who does she think she is, offering free text messages to everyone in the United States who are healing from complex trauma? Who does that girl think she is? Who does she think she is? I'm going to give her a thumbs down on her video. I don't like that she's helping all these trauma survivors. There must be a catch. She just wants something. Right? Oh, okay, I found the chat box. Hi, everyone. I'm here. I'm here. Hunter says, it's a mean potato. I know, right? So any thumbs up you obviously give the video will offset the thumbs downers who hate the fact that I'm trying to help people. You know what I'm saying? Like, do they like really? Really? Um, Maybe it's somebody who's outside of the United States and they're really angry that I can't offer text messaging outside of the United States yet. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Special thank you to Miss Poppy, who's an absolute rock star, posting all of the crisis information. This is never crisis care, crisis support. But I am happy to see you. Oh, James the Broviver says I'm a badass. Woo woo! Thank you. Thank you. I feel like a badass. I'm so stoked to be able to offer this finally. I've been wanting to do it for years, and yet, some people are not going to love it, and that's okay. They don't have to text the little CPTSD to 555-888. They don't have to do that, right? Oh, you guys are amazing. So hello to Miss Poppy. Hello, Francesca. Hello, Shannon. Hey, Miss Beach Boxer. And James, the Broviver, telling me I'm a badass. Special thanks to my mod squad, the Blue Wrench crew. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for all you do. Hello, Nexus. Hello, Hunter. High five, recovery buddy. Hello, Broken Childhood. Hello, John Harvey. Hey, Ann Austin. It's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see all of you. Hi, Tabby Ba. Hey, Deborah Ann. Thank you, Jennifer. Aw. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Hello, Jeffrey. Hello, Dana. So good to see you. Hey, Pixie Painter. Ashton in the house. How are you, homie? I love you. Oh, Kira, hi. Hey, good evening, Declan. So happy to see each and every one of you. Hey, Tanya. Oh, emotional flashbacks, right? Tanya says, hi, everyone. Today's topic is perfect timing for me. So happy I could make it live. Me too. Hi, Angela M. Hey, Anna. Hi, Star Child. Hello, Andrew. Hi, Anthony. Oh, I wish I could provide it to you in the UK. Not yet, but I will soon. So I'm very sorry, but I'll try soon, very soon, very soon, very soon. We're looking into it, but it's more expensive to do that, and I can't afford it right now because I'm like, I'm not there yet. It's gonna take a while. But I appreciate you inquiring about it, Anthony. The daily calls are accessed from all over the world, but that's not free. Texting is free for the end consumer, the end user. Hello, Skylight at Dusk. Hello, Angie. Hello, Betty Boop. Hey, Mallory. Yes, Mother's Day is challenging. We did our daily recovery support call yesterday. The topic was the mother wound. Yeah, we healed some stuff. We healed the things yesterday. Oh my goodness. Seriously. It's a my Mother's Day gift to myself was I stayed on the call longer than than I normally would have. Normally the calls are 45 minutes. But we stayed on our daily calls are 45 minutes, but I stayed on long as my Mother's Day gift to myself. I gave myself that for Mother's Day, and I gave myself my most favorite perfume because I'm going to visit my son. And anytime I ever wear that perfume, he gives me a hug and he says, "Oh, you smell like mom. You smell like a mom." Apparently, my perfume is, I'm sure that's not uh, the marketing language that the company would go for when they try to sell that perfume. But my son thinks that my perfume smells like mom. So that's cool. Oh, Miss Beachboxer, I'm so sorry. I'm not able to do Canada yet. Hello, Miss Vi. Hey, Pants. Good to see you, Pants. Hello, Aurora. Hey, Shanna. Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Your support is so appreciated. I hope that the videos are helpful for you and just all of us getting together to sort of hang out every week. And um, yeah. So Declan wants to know, what are emotional flashbacks apart from the emotions of alters in the present? I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to be reading an article written by Pete Walker today, which was published about 10 years ago. And and it is very insightful. And I will be over there reading it to you all while you all hang out in the chat box. I won't be able to see you. Um, Mom number 5, right? It's actually J'adore by Christian Dior. Um, but, and it's my favorite. I tried to just smell my wrist right now, but I don't have any, I don't think I have any on. So Terry says, hi, catching up. It's been a while of absence. Oh, so happy to have you here, Terry. So happy to see each and every one of you. Hey, Kelly Jelly. How are you tonight? That's the question. Hey, Joey. Okay, so I have greeted all the people, all my family, all my friendly family of choice. And so, what I shall do now is I shall read the article written by Pete Walker while you all hang out in the chat box together. And please just know that whatever it is you're going through right now, you are not alone. You're not alone. And I'm thankful for your life. I'm glad you were born. And I don't believe that you're here tonight by accident. And nothing that we're doing here on these discussions that we have every Monday night, it's always free. There's never any charge. This isn't some sort of bait and switch weird situation. Hey, Miss Connie, so good to see you. There's never any charge. And the texting thing, like Miss Poppy, could you add to the announcements that you put out every single week? Could you let people know that the texting thing is free, except for the standard text messaging rates do apply, um, but yeah, I mean it's free. Like I'm just here providing free support. So anyway, um, yeah, I want you guys to know you're not alone. And YouTube is, what does Richard Grannon say? YouTube is strictly voluntary, darling, voluntary, and it's free. Like, you do not have to pay to be here, and you don't have to pay to receive encouraging text messages. Like, it's free as long as you're in uh, the United States, then we can do it. I'm unable to do it outside of the United States right now. So yet, so far. Hey Wally, so good to see you. So great to see you, Shanna. Again, thank you for being here, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read. I'm going to pop over there and I'm going to read to you. And then in a little while, after I'm done reading, I will come back and I'll see how you guys are doing. And please, this is one of those times when I'm going to be reading to you an article, and this is one of those times where perhaps you might want to take some notes, or if you have some light bulb moments while I'm talking and sharing something that Pete Walker has written, then you could write those things down, okay? And Deborah says, how do I set up texting? Well, you're going to text the letters CPTSD to the number here, which is 555-888. And you're going to click send. And then that's it. You're done. You're signed up. Just like that. For free. So you're so welcome, Deborah. So happy you're here. Okay, so I'm going to go over and I'm going to read to you now. And I'll check back on you in a little while when I'm done reading this article. And again, and again, it's not crisis text support. That's the crisistextline.org, where you text the word start. And I forget their short code now because I have my short code. I don't know if it's 555-888. I can't remember because it's text the word start to something. But my brain is full. But yeah, write down any light bulb moments or put them in the chat box even. Any light bulb moments that come up while I'm reading this article to you, all right? Because you're worth it. You're very, very, very worth it, okay? So happy to see each of you. All right, I'll be back. I'm going to read this to you. So, the article that I'm sharing with you, written by Pete Walker, who, as you know, is a therapist in the state of California. He's been doing it for 30 years. This article was originally published and reprinted back in September of 2009 in a psychotherapy newsletter on psychotherapy.net. And you can always access the reprint of that article on his website. And I'm going to be reading it to you in its entirety today. We're going to talk about flashback management. What are emotional flashbacks? And Declan, to answer your question, we're going to have some vignettes that I'll be reading, like some examples, some stories of other people. And I see myself in some of these stories. So let me know how you guys feel about this, if you see yourself in any of these stories, because I definitely do. So the article is originally titled Emotional Flashback Management in the Treatment of Complex PTSD by Pete Walker. This is Pete Walker speaking. This is him, I'm quoting him right now. He says, early in my career, I worked with David, a handsome, intelligent client who was a professional actor. One day, David came to see me after an unsuccessful audition. Beside himself, he burst out, I never led on to anyone, but I know that I am really very ugly. It's so stupid that I'm trying to be an actor when I'm so painful to look at. David's childhood was characterized by emotional abuse, neglect, and abandonment. The last and unwanted child of a large family, his alcoholic father repeatedly terrorized him. To make matters worse, his family frequently humiliated him by reacting to him with exaggerated looks of disgust. His older brother's favorite was accompanied by a nauseated grimace as he would say, "I can't stand looking at you. The sight of you makes me sick." David was so traumatized by the contempt with which his family had treated him that he was easily triggered by anything but the most benign expression on my face. If he came into session already triggered, he would often project disgust onto me. This is Pete Walker speaking. No matter how much genuine goodwill and regard I felt for him at the time. David was so traumatized. Oh, this is the quote that was the light bulb moment for me. David was so traumatized by the contempt with which his family had treated him that he was easily triggered by anything but the most benign expressions on my face. That's the light bulb moment for me, because I do remember, you guys, I do remember my family saying, it makes me sick. The sight of you makes me sick. Get out of my sight. You make me sick. I remember them saying stuff like that. It's like so traumatizing for a child, right? So I'm going to go on and I'm going to finish reading, and I won't interrupt anymore. This is again Pete Walker writing in his own voice. He says, "I have come to call these reactions, typical of David and of many other clients over the years, emotional flashbacks. Sudden and often prolonged regressions or amygdala hijackings to the frightening and abandoned feeling states of childhood. They are accompanied by inappropriate and intense arousal of the fight-flight instinct and the sympathetic nervous system. Typically, they manifest as intense and confusing episodes of fear, toxic shame, and despair, which often beget angry reactions against the self or others. When fear is the dominant emotion in an emotional flashback, the individual feels overwhelmed, panicky, or even suicidal. When despair predominates, it creates a sense of profound numbness, paralysis, and an urgent need to hide. Feeling small, young, fragile, powerless, and helpless is also common in emotional flashbacks. Such experiences are typically overlaid with toxic shame, which, as described in John Bradshaw's Healing the Shame That Binds, obliterates an individual's self-esteem with an overpowering sense that she is worthless, stupid, contemptible, or fatally flawed as she was viewed by her original caregivers. Toxic shame inhibits the individual from seeking comfort and support, and in a reenactment of the childhood abandonment she is flashing back to, isolates herself in an overwhelming and humiliating sense of defectiveness. Clients who view themselves as worthless, defective, ugly, or despicable are showing signs of being lost in an emotional flashback. When stuck in this state, they often polarize affectively into intense self-hatred and self-disgust, and cognitively into extreme and virulent self-criticism. Numerous clients tell me that the concept of an emotional flashback brings them a great sense of relief. They report that for the first time, they're able to make some sense of their extremely troubled lives. Some get that their addictions are misguided attempts to self-medicate. Some understand the inefficacy of the myriad of psychological and spiritual answers they pursued, and are in turn feeling liberated from a shaming plethora of misdiagnoses. Some can now frame their extreme episodes of risk-taking and self-destructiveness as desperate attempts to distract themselves from their pain. Many experience hope that they can rid themselves of the habit of amassing evidence of defectiveness or craziness. Many report a budding recognition that they can challenge the self-hatred and self-disgust that typically thwarts their progress in therapy. Early on, in working with this model, I was surprised that a number of clients with moderate and sometimes minimal sexual or physical childhood abuse were plagued by emotional flashbacks. Over time, however, I realized that these individuals had suffered extreme emotional neglect, the kind of neglect where no caretaker was ever available for support, comfort, or protection. No one liked them. No one welcomed them or listened to them. No one had empathy for them. No one showed them warmth or invited closeness. No one cared about what they thought or felt or did or wanted or dreamed of. Such trauma victims learned early in life that no matter how hurt, alienated, or terrified they were, turning to a parent would actually exacerbate their experience of rejection. The child who is abandoned in this way experiences the world as a terrifying place. I think about how humans were hunter-gatherers for most of our time on this planet. The child's survival and safety from predators during the first 6 years of life during these times depended on being in very close proximity to an adult. Children are wired to feel scared when left alone, and to cry and protest to alert their caretakers when they are. But when the caretakers turn their backs on such cries for help, the child is left to cope with a nightmarish inner world, the stuff of which emotional flashbacks are made. Because of this, emotional flashbacks can best be understood as the key symptom of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, a syndrome afflicting many adults who experienced ongoing abuse or neglect in childhood. As described by leading trauma theorist Judith Herman, author of Trauma and Recovery, and renowned PTSD researcher Bessel van der Kolk, complex PTSD is caused by prolonged, repeated trauma and a history of subjection to totalitarian control, such as happens in extremely dysfunctional families. It is distinguished from the more familiar type of PTSD, in which the trauma is specific and defined. Because of the prolonged nature of the trauma, complex PTSD can be even more virulent and pervasively damaging in its effects. Complex PTSD has not yet been included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders in the United States of America. Ongoing experience convinces me that some children respond to pervasive emotional neglect and abandonment by over-identifying or even merging their identity with the inner critic and adopting an intense form of perfectionism that triggers them into painful abandonment flashbacks every time they are less than perfect or perfectly pleasing. When I encourage such clients to free associate during their emotional flashbacks, I frequently hear a version of this toxic shame spiral. If only I were perfect. If only I were an A student, a baseball hero, a beauty queen, a saint. If only I weren't so stupid and selfish, then maybe they would love me. But who am I kidding? I'll never be anywhere near that because I'm just a piece of shit. Who in the world could ever care about someone so pathetic? Emotional flashbacks strand clients in the cognitions and feelings of danger, helplessness, and hopelessness that characterize their original abandonment when there was no safe parental figure to go to for comfort and support. Hence, complex PTSD is now accurately being identified by some traumatologists as an attachment disorder. Emotional flashback management, therefore, needs to be taught in the context of a safe relationship. Clients need to feel safe enough with the therapist to describe their humiliation and overwhelm. And the therapist needs to feel comfortable enough to provide them the empathy and calm support that was missing in the client's early experience. Because most emotional flashbacks do not have a visual or memory component to them, the triggered individual rarely realizes that she is experiencing a traumatic time from childhood. Psychoeducation is therefore a fundamental first step in the process of helping clients understand and manage their emotional flashbacks. Most of my clients experience noticeable relief when I explain complex PTSD to them. The diagnosis resonates deeply with their intuitive understanding of their suffering. When they recognize that their sense of overwhelm initially arose as a normal, instinctual response to their traumatic circumstances, they begin to shed the belief that they are crazy, hopelessly oversensitive, and/or incurably defective. Without help in the midst of an emotional flashback, clients typically find no recourse but their own particular array of primitive, self-injuring defenses to their unmanageable feelings. These dysfunctional responses generally manifest in 4 ways. Number 1, fighting or over-asserting oneself in narcissistic ways, such as misusing power or promoting excessive self-interest. Number 2, fleeing, obsessive-compulsively into activities such as work addiction, sex and love addiction, or substance abuse, like uppers. Number 3, freezing, numbing, dissociative ways such as sleeping excessively, over-fantasizing, or tuning out with TV or medications like downers. And lastly, number 4, fawning, codependently in self-abandoning ways such as putting up with narcissistic bosses or abusive parents or partners, rather. I find that most clients can be guided to see the harmfulness of their previously necessary but now outmoded defenses as a misfiring of their fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. In the context of a secure therapeutic alliance, they can begin to replace these defenses with healthy, stress-ameliorating responses. I introduce this phase of the work by giving the client my list of 13 cognitive, affective, somatic, and behavioral techniques listed at the end of this article, so they can utilize it outside of the session. I elaborate on these techniques in our sessions as well. As clients begin to respond more functionally to being triggered, opportunities arise more frequently for working with flashbacks in our sessions. In fact, it often seems that their unconscious desire for mastery schedules their flashbacks to occur just prior to or during our sessions. I recently experienced this with a client who rushed into my office 5 minutes late, visibly flushed and anxious. She opened the session by exclaiming, "I am such a loser. I can't do anything right. You must be sick of working with me." This was someone who had on previous occasions accepted and even been moved by my validation of her ongoing accomplishments in our work. Based on what she had uncovered about her mother's punitive perfectionism in previous sessions, I was certain that her being late had triggered an emotional flashback. In this moment, she was most likely experiencing what Susan Vaughn's MRI research, titled The Talking Cure, describes as a gross overfiring of right brain emotional processing with a decrease in cognitive processing in the left brain. Vaughn interprets this as a temporary loss of access to left brain knowledge and understanding. This appears to be a mechanism of dissociation. And in this instance, it rendered my client amnesiac of my high regard for our work together. I believe this type of dissociation also accounts for the recurring disappearance of previously established trust that commonly occurs with emotional flashbacks. This phenomenon makes it imperative that we psychoeducate clients that flashbacks can cause them to forget that proven allies are, in fact, still reliable, and that they are flashing back to their childhoods when no one was trustworthy. Trust repair is an essential process in healing the attachment disorders created by pervasive childhood trauma. PTSD clients do not have a volitional on switch for trust, even though their off switch is frequently automatically triggered during flashbacks. The therapist therefore needs to be prepared to work on reassurance and trust restoral over and over again. I have heard too many client stories about past therapists who got angry at them because they would not simply choose to trust them. Returning to the above vignette, I wondered out loud to my client, do you think you might be in a flashback? Because of the numerous times we had previously identified and named her current type of experience as an emotional flashback, she immediately recognized this and let go into deep sobbing. She dropped into profound grieving that allowed her to release the flashback, a type of grieving, the restorative power of which I have witnessed innumerable times. It is a crying that combines tears of relief with tears of grief. Relief at being able to take in another's empathy and make sense of confusing, overwhelming pain, and grief over the childhood abandonment that created this sense of abject alienation in the first place. My client released some of the pain of her original trauma and of the times she had previously been stuck in the unrelenting pain of flashing back to her original abandonment. As her tears subsided, she recalled to me a time as a small child when she had literally received a single lump of coal in her Christmas stocking as punishment for being 10 minutes late to dinner. Her tears morphed into healthy anger about this abuse, and she felt herself returning to an empowered sense of self. Grieving brought her back into the present and broke the amnesia of the flashback. She could then remember to invoke the self-protective resources we had gradually been building in her therapy with role plays, assertiveness training, and psychoeducation about her parents' destruction of her healthy instinct to defend herself against abuse and unfairness. The ubiquitous childhood phrase of, "that's not fair," had been severely punished and extinguished by her parents. She reconnected with her right and need to have boundaries, to judge her parents' actions unconscionable, and to fiercely say no to her critic's subsequent habit of judging her harshly for every peccadillo. Finally, I reminded her to re-invoke her sense of safety by recognizing that she now inhabited an adult body free of parental control, and that she had many resources to draw on: intelligence, strength, resilience, and a growing sense of community. She lived in a safe home. She had the support of her therapist and two friends who were her allies and who readily saw her essential worth. I also observed that she was making ongoing progress in managing her flashbacks, that they were occurring less often and less intensely. We're going to move on now to the section of the article that Pete Walker writes about, and the subtitle of this portion of the article is Managing the Inner Critic. I'm going to pause and take a drink of water, and I'll be right back. In guiding clients to develop their ability to manage emotional flashbacks, my most common intervention involves helping them to deconstruct the alarmist tendencies of the inner critic. This is essential, as Donald Kalschit explains in The Inner World of Trauma, because the inner critic grows rampantly in traumatized children, and because the inner critic not only exacerbates flashbacks, but eventually grows into a psychic agency that initiates them. Continuous abuse and neglect force the child's inner critic, or superego, to overdevelop perfectionism and hypervigilance. The perfectionism of complex PTSD puts the child's every thought, word, or action on trial and judges her as fatally flawed if any of them are not 100% faultless. Perfectionism then devolves into the child's obsessive attempt to root out real or imagined defects and to achieve unsurpassable excellence in an effort to win a modicum of safety and comforting attachment. The hypervigilance of complex PTSD is an over-aroused sympathetic nervous system fixation on endangerment that comes from long-term childhood exposure to real danger. In an effort to recognize, predict, and avoid danger, hypervigilance develops in a traumatized child as an incessant on-guard scanning of both the real environment and, most especially, the imagined upcoming environment. Hypervigilance typically devolves into intense performance anxiety on every level of self-expression, and perfectionism festers into a virulent inner voice that manifests as self-hatred, self-disgust, and self-abandonment at every turn. When the child with complex PTSD eventually comes of age and launches from the traumatizing family, she is so dominated by feelings of danger, shame, and abandonment that she's often unaware that adulthood now offers many new resources for achieving internal and external safety and healthy connection with others. She's unaware that a huge part of her identity is subsumed in the inner critic, the proxy of her dysfunctional caregivers, and that she has had scarce room to develop a healthy self with an accompanying healthy ego. This scenario arises frequently in my private practice. A client, in the midst of reporting some inconsequential miscue of the previous week, suddenly launches into a catastrophizing tale of her life deteriorating into a cascading series of disasters. She's flashing back to the danger-ridden times of her childhood, and her distress sounds something like this. My boss looked at me funny when I came back from my bathroom break this morning, and I know he thinks I'm stupid and lazy and he's going to fire me. I just know I won't be able to get another job. My boyfriend will think I'm a loser and he'll leave me. I'll get sick from the stress and no money to pay my medical insurance and rent, and I'll be a bag lady on the street. It's disturbing how many catastrophizing inner critic rants end with the bag lady on the street. What a symbol of abandonment. Teaching such clients to recognize when they have polarized into inner critic catastrophizing and modeling to them how to resist it with thought stopping and thought substitution are essential steps in managing emotional flashbacks. In this case, I reminded my client of the many times we had previously caught the inner critic laundry listing every conceivable way a difficult situation could spiral into disaster, and I invited her to use thought stopping, to refuse to indulge this process. I suggested that she visualize a stop sign and say no to the critic each time it tried to scare or demean her. I reminded her that she had learned to catastrophize from her parents, who noticed her in such a predominantly negative and intimidating way. I also re-invoked the thought substitution process we had practiced in numerous occasions, encouraging her to remember and focus on all the positive things she knew about herself. Finally, I reminded her of all the positive experiences she had actually had with her boss, and I listed the essential qualities and accomplishments we were working to integrate into her self-image: her intelligence, integrity, resilience, kindness, and many successes at work and school. So the next section of this article, written by Pete Walker, is subtitled Rescuing the Wounded Child. The one we just read was Managing the Inner Critic. So now we're moving from managing the inner critic to rescuing the wounded child. Over the course of a therapy, I often reframe emotional flashbacks as messages from the wounded inner child designed to challenge denial or minimization about childhood trauma. It is as if the inner child is clamoring for validation of past parental abuse and neglect. See, this is how bad it was, how overwhelmed, how terrified, ashamed, and abandoned I felt so much of the time. When seen in this light, emotional flashbacks are also signals from the wounded child that many of her developmental needs have not been met. Most important among these are the needs for safety and for Winnicottian good enough attachment. And you guys just remember that good enough, which I might be saying Winnicottian wrong. It might be Winnicottian good enough attachment. Pete Walker uses the phrase good enough when speaking about like good enough parents or safe enough childhood. If something is good enough, that means that it's neutral or better, and nothing's perfect, but it means that there's a sense of safety. I'll continue. There are no needs more important than those of a parent's protection and empathy without which a child cannot own and develop her instincts for self-protection and self-compassion, the cornerstones of a healthy ego. Without awakening to the need for this kind of primal self-advocacy, clients remain stuck in learned self-abandonment and rarely develop effective resistance to internal or external abuse, and seldom gain the motivation to consistently use the 13 tools for managing emotional flashbacks at the end of this article. When clients recognize that their emotional storms are messages from an inner child who is still pining for a healthy inner attachment figure, and when they are able to internalize the therapist's acceptance and support, they gradually become more self-accepting and less ashamed of their flashbacks, their imperfections, and their dysphoric affective experience. When the therapist repeatedly models feeling-based indignation at the fact that the client was taught to hate himself, the client eventually feels incensed enough about this experience to begin standing up to the inner critic and of investing in the extensive work of building healthy self-advocacy. When the therapist consistently responds compassionately to the client's suffering, the client's capacity for self-empathy and self-forgiveness begins to awaken. He gradually begins to desire to comfort and soothe himself in times of cognitive confusion, emotional pain, physical distress, or real-life disappointment, rather than surrender to an inner torture of self-hatred and self-disappointment and self-abandonment. Around this time in therapy, the client also solidifies her understanding that the lion's share of the energy contained in her intense emotional flashbacks are actually appropriate but delayed reactions to various themes of her childhood abuse and neglect. Gradually, often at the rate of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, she's able to metabolize these feelings in a way that not only resolves her trauma, but builds new, healthy, self-empowering psychic structure as well. This, in turn, leads to an ongoing reduction of the unresolved psychic pain that fuels her emotional flashbacks, which subsequently become less frequent, intense, and enduring. Eventually, a person experiencing an emotional flashback begins to invoke a sense of self-protection as soon as she realizes she's triggered, or even immediately upon being triggered. As flashbacks decrease and become more manageable, the defensive structures built around them, narcissistic, obsessive compulsive, dissociative, and codependent, can be more readily deconstructed. The next section of this article is subtitled Moving Through Abandonment into Intimacy, a case study. A sweet, middle-aged male client of mine from an upper-middle-class family had suffered severe emotional abandonment in childhood. Both parents were workaholics and therefore unavailable. As the youngest of 5 children, my client was hamstrung in the sibling competition for scarce parental resources. His adulthood reenacted the relational impoverishment of childhood. He was hair-triggered for retreat and isolation. He had never experienced an enduring relationship. As a result of our long-term work, however, he became more motivated to seek a relationship and successfully dated a healthy and available partner. For the first 6 months of their relationship, her kind nature, along with my coaching, enabled him to show her more and more of himself, and he was rewarded by increasing feelings of comfort and love while relating with her. When he accepted her request to move in together, however, it became harder to hide his recurring emotional flashbacks to the overwhelming anxiety and emptiness of his childhood. He was more convinced than ever that the abandonment melange of fear, shame, and depression at the core of his flashbacks was the most despicable of his many fatal flaws. As we worked with this belief in therapy, he remembered many times when even the mildest dip in his mood triggered his psychotherapist mother to turn her back on him and flee to the inviolability of her locked room. He saw that the occasional utility his mother found in him depended on his keeping her buoyant and lifting her spirits. He was traumatized into a staunch conviction that social inclusion depended on his manifesting a bravura of love, listening, and entertainment. A codependent defense of fawning and performing had been instilled in him. Now, he could not shake off the fear that if he ever deviated from being loving, funny, and bright, his new partner would be disgusted and abandon him. He reported that, in fact, his flashbacks at home had increased. provoking a desperate need to isolate and hide. His freeze response was activated, and he increasingly disappeared from her into silence, the computer, excessive sleeping, and marathon TV sports viewing. During his most intense flashbacks, his fear and self-disgust became so intense that his flight response took over, and he invented any excuse to get out of the house. He was besieged by thoughts and fantasies of being single again. His inner critic was winning the battle. He was sure his partner was disgusted with his affect, as his mother had been. He was on the verge of a full-fledged flight response into the old habit of precipitously ending relationships, as he always had in the past when the brief infatuation stages of his few previous relationships came to an end. We spent many subsequent sessions managing these emotional flashbacks to his original abandonment. He understood more deeply that his silent withdrawals were evidence that he was flashing back, and he committed to rereading and using the 13 steps of flashback management at such times. With my encouragement and gentle nudging, he grieved over his original abandonment more deeply and more self-compassionately than ever before in our work together. Over and over, he confronted the critic's projection of his mother onto his partner. He practiced grounding himself in the present, and at home began talking to his girlfriend about his experiences of flashing back into the abandonment melange. A crowning achievement occurred when he was finally able to disclose to her that talking vulnerably made him feel even more afraid and ashamed and deserving of abandonment. To his great relief, he was rewarded not only by her empathic response, but also by her gratitude for his vulnerability, and she began to share an even deeper level of her own vulnerability. For the first time, he began talking to her while he was actually depressed. Their love then began to expand into those special depths of intimacy that are only achieved when people feel safe enough to communicate about all their cognitive, emotional, and behavioral experiences, the good and the bad, the gratifying and the disappointing, the loving and the mad. One of the great rewards of this kind of recovery work is that the individual achieves a depth, a richness of communication and contact that many non-traumatized people miss out on, because wider social forces have scared and shamed them of ever feeling anything truly vulnerable. As my client became more skilled at being vulnerable, he was rewarded with the irreplaceable intimacy that comes from commiseration, another gift that many less traumatized members of our culture never get to discover. The degree to which two individuals mutually share all aspects of their experience is the degree to which they have real love and intimacy. As clients learn to identify flashbacks as normal responses to abnormally stressful childhood conditions, they become free of the fear and shame that have made them isolate, overreact, and push others away at such times. Most clients experience tremendous relief when they learn to interpret their overwhelming or excessively numbing experiences as emotional flashbacks, rather than as proof that they are bad, defective, worthless, or crazy. Such realizations, as rapidly evaporating as they can be in early recovery, heal the fear and shame so central to emotional flashbacks. As clients learn to stay in contact and communicate functionally from their pain, they begin to heal their core abandonment depression. They gradually discover that they are not detestable, but lovable and acceptable in their deepest vulnerability. This begins to heal their attachment disorders, the most deleterious part of complex PTSD. It allows them to evolve toward what some traumatologists call an earned, secure attachment. For many people, this first secure attachment is achieved with the therapist, which in turn allows the client to know that such an invaluable experience is possible. With ongoing psychoeducation and coaching from the therapist, this first safe enough relationship can become the launching pad for seeking such a relationship outside of therapy. The ending phase of therapy is typically characterized by the client building at least one good enough, earned, secure attachment outside of therapy. One relationship where she has learned to manage her flashbacks without excessively acting out against others or herself. The next section of this article, written by Pete Walker on emotional flashbacks, is subtitled Challenges and Rewards for the Therapist. What I find most difficult about this work is that it is often excruciatingly slow and gradual. Nowhere is this truer than in the work of shrinking the toxic inner critic. Progress is often beyond the perception of the client, especially during a flashback, and flashbacks are unfortunately never completely arrested. The hardest thing of all is getting the client to see that emotional flashbacks, a bit like diabetes, are a lifetime condition that will always need a modicum of management. Good enough management creates a good enough life, one where flashbacks markedly and continually decrease, but inevitably recur from time to time. Failure to accept this reality typically causes the client to reinvoke her old reactions to flashbacks, which in turn cause her to get lost in the self-abandonment of blaming and shaming herself. What I love most about this kind of trauma work is seeing clients with a long history of developmental arrest, as well as feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, begin to become empowered. I am delighted every time a client responds to her own suffering with kindness or reports an action of self-protectiveness in the world at large. I love witnessing the gradual growth of self-confidence and self-expression in my clients. This inevitably seems to grow out of their recovered ability to get angry about what happened to them in childhood and to use that anger to empower and motivate themselves to face the fear of trying on new, more assertive behaviors. I'm also especially moved when a client learns to cry for himself in that fully functional, unabashed way where tears release fear and shame. In my experience, nothing catharsizes. I have trouble with that word. I know catharsis, but there's like an extra syllable. In my experience, Pete Walker says, nothing catharsizes fear and catastrophizing obsessiveness like egocentric tears. I have, on thousands of occasions, witnessed clients grieving in a way that resurrects them from a flashback back into their growing self-esteem and resourcefulness. Another highlight of this work for me comes in the early and middle stages of therapy. I like to call it rescuing the client from the hegemony of the critic. Hegemony? I believe there is an unmet childhood need for rescue that I help meet when I save my client from the critic. Unlike mom, who didn't save him from his abusive dad, or unlike the neighborhood that didn't rescue him from his alcoholic family. Decades of trauma work have taken me to a place where my heart no longer allows me to be silent, and hence tacitly approving when clients verbally and emotionally abuse themselves in a gross over-identification with the inner critic. I'm additionally motivated to do this because of the failure of my own first long-term experience of psychoanalytic therapy, where my blank screen therapist let me flounder and perseverate in endless iterations of my PTSD-acquired self-hatred and self-disgust. Never once was it pointed out that I could and should challenge this anti-self behavior. UCSF trauma expert Harvey Peskin would call this a failure to bear witness to the traumatization of the child. I have learned to take this a step further by not only vocally witnessing the client's flashback into the helplessness of his original abandonment, but also giving him a hand to climb out of that abyss of fear and shame. The term rescuing and what it represents has become a taboo in the 12-step movement. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous, Adult Children of Alcoholics, Incest Survivors Anonymous, etc., and many psychotherapy circles. The word rescuing is often used in such an all or none way that any type of active helping is pathologized. However, I think helping clients out of the abyss of emotional flashbacks is a necessary form of active helping or rescuing. The rescuing I refer to is different from the kind that many therapists correctly view as disempowering and unhealthy for the client. One example of this type of counter-therapeutic rescuing is inappropriate or excessive advocacy, colluding with or encouraging personal irresponsibility, such as exonerating a client's regressed or infantile acting out without steering him toward learning to interact more responsibly and salubriously with himself and the world is also a common type of problematic rescuing. A final great reward I experience in helping clients manage their emotional flashbacks is witnessing the development of their emotional and relational intelligence. At the risk of sounding Pollyannish, I believe complex PTSD actually has a silver lining: the potential to reconnect with these intelligences at much deeper levels than those who are not traumatized in the family, but who suffer a truncation of their emotional self-expression and relational capacity. Wider social forces can strand individuals in the loneliness of superficial relating and can cause them to hide significant aspects of their emotional experience. A number of my clients in the later stages of recovery work have built and earned relationships that exhibit a depth of intimacy I rarely see in the general population. And lastly, the 13 stages of managing emotional flashbacks. And I will go ahead and I will share this screen with you so that you can read along with me. Here we go. Number 1, say to yourself, I am having a flashback. Flashbacks take us into a timeless part of the psyche that feels as helpless, hopeless, and surrounded by danger as we were in childhood. The feelings and sensations you are experiencing are past memories that cannot hurt you now. Number 2, remind yourself, I feel afraid, but I am not in danger. I am safe now, here in the present. Remember, you are now in the safety of the present, far from the danger of the past. Number 3, own your right and need to have boundaries. Remind yourself that you do not have to allow anyone to mistreat you. You are free to leave dangerous situations and protest unfair behavior. Number 4, speak reassuringly to your inner child. The child needs to know that you love her unconditionally, that she can come to you for comfort and protection when she feels lost and scared. Number 5, deconstruct eternity thinking. In childhood, fear and abandonment felt endless. A safer future was unimaginable. Remember, the flashback will pass as it has many times before. Number 6, remind yourself that you're in an adult body with allies, skills, and resources to protect you that you never had as a child. Feeling small and little is a sure sign of a flashback. Ease back into your body. Fear launches us into heady worrying or numbing and spacing out. Gently ask your body to relax. Feel each of your major muscle groups and softly encourage them to relax. Tightened musculature sends unnecessary danger signals to the brain. Breathe deeply and slowly. Holding the breath also signals danger. Slow down. Rushing presses the psyche's panic button. Find a safe place to unwind and soothe yourself. Wrap yourself in a blanket. Hold a stuffed animal. Lie down in a closet or a bath. Take a nap. Feel the fear in your body without reacting to it. Fear is just an energy in your body, but it cannot hurt you if you do not run from it or react self-destructively to it. Number 8, resist the inner critic's catastrophizing. Use thought stopping to halt its exaggeration of danger and need to control the uncontrollable. Refuse to shame, hate, or abandon yourself. Channel the anger of self-attack into saying no to unfair self-criticism. Use thought substitution to replace negative thinking with a memorized list of your qualities and accomplishments. Number 9, allow yourself to grieve. Flashbacks are opportunities to release old, unexpressed feelings of fear, hurt, and abandonment, and to validate and then soothe the child's past experience of helplessness and hopelessness. Healthy grieving can turn our tears into self-compassion and our anger into self-protection. Number 10, cultivate safe relationships and seek support. Take time alone when you need it, but don't let shame isolate you. Feeling shame doesn't mean you are shameful. Educate those close to you about flashbacks and ask them to help you talk and feel your way through them. Number 11, learn to identify the types of triggers that lead to flashbacks. Avoid unsafe people, places, activities, and triggering mental processes. Practice preventative maintenance with these steps when triggering situations are unavoidable. Number 12, figure out what you are flashing back to. Flashbacks are opportunities to discover, validate, and heal our wounds from past abuse and abandonment. They also point to our still unmet developmental needs and can provide motivation to get them met. And lastly, number 13, be patient with a slow recovery process. It takes time in the present to become unadrenalized and considerable time in the future to gradually decrease the intensity, duration, and frequency of flashbacks. Real recovery is a gradual process, often 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Don't beat yourself up for having a flashback. So I am going to put us back on our little um, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and hang out in the chat box with you for a few minutes. I know we're over time, so I'm going to let you guys go. But I want to thank you all for being here, for taking the time to show up for you. Special thank you to Poppy for all she does, all the Mod Squad, the Blue Wrench crew. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do this work without you. And I know that this conversation is a heavy one, and you know, self-advocacy is not something that was taught to us. Self-advocacy is not something which was modeled for us. So you're so welcome. You guys are so welcome. Absolutely. You're welcome. You're welcome, Shannon. You're welcome. You're welcome, Tanya. You're welcome, Vi. You're welcome, Angela. You're welcome, John Harvey. You're welcome, Kadir. You're welcome, Kira. You are most welcome. Love and hugs to you too, Pixie Painter. I know we're over time, you guys, but you know, you're so welcome, Andrew. Absolutely. You guys, it's so important that we learn how to advocate for ourselves. So I'm going to post down here. Let me see if I can. Hey, Poppy. I'm going to post in the chat box real quick. Oops. Just kidding. Oh, no. Here I am. Okay. Here is a link to the article that I read to you all. And I'm going to go ahead and here is a link to the article written by Pete Walker. Is it MSW or is it MFT? Now I'm not sure. Let me see. Marriage and family therapist. I'm always like, is it a master's in social work or is he master's in family therapy? Okay, here is a link to the article written by Pete Walker. There we go. You all know I'm a huge fan, so yay. Oh, you all are so amazing. Thanks for all the thumbs up, you guys. You're very welcome, Sharon. You guys are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being my family. You're welcome, Nexus. You are so welcome. Oh, Sharon, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Yay. You guys are so awesome. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you, everybody. Yes, Poppy, family for the win. You guys. I think maybe we will. Oh, thumbs up for Athena. I would never thumbs down Pete Walker. I'm a huge Pete Walker fan. Lots of love for that man. He is, as per Pete Walker, he is good enough. No one's perfect, but he is good enough. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Billy. So, so happy to hear that. You guys are amazing. So take really good care of yourselves, please. And I will see you back here. You know what? I'm traveling for the next like 2 to 3 weeks. So our videos on Monday nights. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Nora. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, each of you. You guys are wonderful. So I'm traveling. I'm going to my son's college graduation, my daughter-in-law's promotion to captain in the Army, and she's receiving her doctorate in veterinary medicine. And then I have business that I'm traveling for as well, and which is like really exciting, like stuff for CPTSD Foundation and. Um, So, what I'm trying to say is our videos here on Monday nights for the next 3 weeks will be very, very abbreviated. They will only be a couple minutes long. And when I get back from traveling, actually for 2 weeks, they'll be very abbreviated and short, like a few minutes long. And then on the third week, I will. I'll probably be doing a video similar to this one. We'll follow back up, and your challenge, should you choose to accept it, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to go to the 13 areas of managing emotional flashbacks and find one that resonates with you and implement it into your daily schedule of your life and begin over the next, 13 weeks to advocate for yourself on a regular basis. When we practice self advocacy, it's like the opposite of self abandonment, which is what was modeled for us, right? So, in a couple weeks, in 3 weeks, we will follow back up and find out. First of all, anyone who wants to, it's free. This is a free texting program that we're doing, and we're testing it out for 1 week. We're testing out the texting program for 1 week. If you're interested in being part of the beta, it's Monday, May 13th. So between now and May 20th, you'll receive 1 text per day, every day, and it will just be an encouragement. And it's for US only. We can only do United States for right now. And, you know, let us know how you like it. Maybe on the 7th or 8th day, we'll send you a link to an anonymous sort of feedback form where you can tell us what was great, what wasn't so great, what do you suggest, what did you like, what did you not like. Yeah, so that sounds like a good plan. Yeah. Oh, I've definitely printed out those 13, the 13 thingy things, pants. I've definitely printed them out. When I'm in the midst of a flashback, I only read the part that's in bold. I don't try to read all the other print. It's too much for me to take in. I'm already in not a good place. So I just do it real. I go down the list and see how many I can possibly even pay attention to because I'm in the midst of, it's just like it's too much, right? Poppy, you're hilarious. Poppy says, travel safe, boss lady. I'm so not the boss. Are you kidding me? I'm not sure who the boss is, but it's totally not me. Ashton, you have a swell rest of the day. Yay, Kira's in. So yeah, between now and the next 3 weeks, you guys try to apply some of these 13 different aspects or even reread this article. I realize it takes an hour. I realize it takes an hour to read the article, but hello, it's worth it. And why is it worth it? Because you are worth it. Hashtag because you are worth it. Because we are worth it. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I'll probably check in for a couple minutes next Monday and a couple minutes the following Monday. And then in 3 weeks, we will be right back here having a discussion about this topic. We'll probably talk about self advocacy, how we can advocate for ourselves. Yeah. Hashtag because we are worth it. You guys are amazing. You are fantabulous, Sharon. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Thanks for everything, everybody. Be kind and gentle to yourselves tonight.